Well, perfect. Okay, we're live on Instagram now. So we'll go live there. And start the recording.
Welcome to the Photography Chat with Merlin. Photography Chat with Merlin.
All right, welcome to a new season of the chat. I took a bit of a break there for a while, just life got crazy. But I'm back and I've got some new friends here from another beer company and another, oh no, AI, don't do that.
What do you mean? This is AI?
Okay. Oh, we're good.
Should we all talk? Does that help with AI?
I think so.
Yeah, I was doing the iPads.
Let's talk about AI.
Don't do that. Oh, stop it.
Disable.
Is there a disable button?
Actually, this is actually kind of neat. It's like it's going where people are talking, but maybe we stop it, go out. I don't know. Okay, let me see if I can turn this off while we're talking.
We're all learning while we're doing
Technology, Jesus Christ. This is, how do I make the gestures go away? No, not beauty. Sorry, we've got
this.
technical.
We have an AI specialist here. Shouldn't we ask him?
Oh no, now the freaking camera went away.
Oh, yeah, look back in.
It's off.
Device asleep, resume. Okay.
Oh. There we go.
Sweet baby Jesus. Group mode. Stay there.
Nice.
No more putting up the hand for the gesture.
All right.
What hand for the gesture?
I was planning a lot of gestures, actually.
Show me.
Well, you can. It's like no. Okay. No auto sleep because that was annoying. No auto framing. No zoom. Okay, we should be safe for gestures now.
Okay.
How many
Yeah.
people did we lose on Instagram?
I don't know. I think they're all laughing at us. No, we didn't lose anyone.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we're still there. We got
That's a
3 whole
win.
people watching on there. And Cromwell says talk to the hands. Hey Cromwell, how you doing, man? I miss you. So back to the intro. Make sure is it okay, it's not doing it now. Good.
Very good.
So I'm here with my friends from another beer company, and they run something called Another Photography Club. So if you guys want to take a sec to introduce yourselves. Feel
Hello,
free.
I'm Alex. Alex Jobson. I own another beer company.
And I'm Sam Kellett, the host of Another Photography Club.
And so how did that come across with you guys?
It's pretty organic, I would say.
Yeah.
You know,
Sam's partner is Emily. She's one of our first rad employees, and we've kept in touch. She's gone on to bigger things as they do, and we were keeping in touch. And I always like to pick the brain of Sam on photography and talk about those things, even though I'm very limited in my knowledge of it. But
yeah.
thought that we had an opportunity to make a fun group and a fun place in the community that people could come and learn more or meet others that are into the same thing.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with me. I wanted to expand the people that I know and meet other photographers who are as passionate as me about photography.
Yeah, and then people could also bring different cameras that will open up the doors for more possibilities and learning about different products.
That's awesome. And you guys are partnered with BowPhoto as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just emailed them and gave them the idea of what we were going to do, and they jumped on so quick. They were
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and they've been a fantastic sponsor.
Yeah. very regular attenders to the meetups, which is huge when you partner with people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is huge. So I'm going to assume Sam's into photography because you're the one that started this. But what got you into like photography? Like, what was your sort of
Yeah.
journey into it?
So my very similar to you, Merlin. My mom had a ep1 with a 100 mm macro lens, and she shot everything, like my whole childhood. And when I was able to like buy a camera, I bought an ep1, and then eventually someone was like, you should really try a Leica, and I was like, it was 2016, and I was like, oh yeah, it was eBay. I was like, an M2, it's $1,000 Canadian. I was like, and so then I started, shooting with the M2, and I've been shooting pretty much every day for a decade.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, the Leica adventure is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's like I'm really into vintage lenses, and so like the M2 as a platform for vintage lenses, I was like, oh yeah, there's this whole wide world of LTM lenses, and but yeah.
What kind of vintage lenses have been some of your favorites that you've been using?
So one of my favorites has been the 35 Canon F2. It's a small lens. It's very compact, but it has this thing where it's just got a bit of field curvature. Like, everybody's like, oh, I love the Helios, and it gives that, but just subtle, like a very subtle version of that. So, and I shot with that for like 5 years.
So that's a thread mount lens then, and you're using the adapter to get it to M. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very rad.
Yeah.
Then what about you, Alex?
So yeah, I would say it all started with skateboarding. I haven't really gone down the nerding out on photography and deep diving, but skateboard magazines and watching skate videos, and then Grant Britton and even watching Jason Lee with what he's been doing, and even our local Rick McCrank, like he very I find that in skateboarding it always kind of leads to that, like Ed Templeton and all these very skilled skateboarders go into that avenue when things start when you start traveling for being a pro skateboarder and things. So like you kind of live through what they're doing and you get really into it. And so then I'm a realtor as well. So I really got into architectural photography, taking my own photos for my listings, and just really liking messing around with that, and just how it's not just a very simplistic way of taking a photo of a room, and that there's great photos and then there's bad photos.
Yeah. Did you see the news that Eagle Rock posted today?
No.
They're starting up their own photography podcast as well that they're going to do inside of the shop.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was like a conversation you and I had early on when we were talking about getting the photography club started, was like my love of Jason Lee's photography. Because I was like, oh yeah, I have the Refuel book, and I swear every time we hang out, I'm always like, oh, I forgot to bring the Refuel book, so you can.
That's such a hard thing to find now.
Oh yeah.
I've wanted a copy of it so bad.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
And I will say that I came across your podcast was because I was just Googling and searching online about Jason Lee's photography, and you had a podcast with him, so I was just like, this is amazing. So.
Yeah, that was a really cool episode. We did it at his place there in Los Angeles in his old studio, and it was pretty cool because his like daughters came in and like were hanging out with us, and yeah, it was just it was a lot of fun. It's cool seeing.
It sounded chaotic.
Yeah.
It seemed like you were talking and then 1 minute jump into the distraction, but yeah, it sounded fun.
That's what I kind of like about this, though, is like there's a lot of podcasts out there that are like way more structured, actually structured, Mine is just sort of mostly been, I just want to have a chat with people and like,
Well, I feel like I'm going to say something that we're going to have to cut out eventually. So,
us live. So there's
Oh,
no way to
right.
cut it
Okay.
out. Yeah. So this is, yeah,
there's no editing.
there's no editing, which is like great for me because I'm lazy as heck. Editing is my least favorite thing, which is why I don't shoot a lot of digital.
Well, when you know that something's been cut, you're like, what did I miss? Right. So,
Yeah. And like I've probably said things in a few episodes that if someone were to be like, "Hey, remember that time you said that?" and then they should, I'd be like, "Oh." Yeah. But no regrets.
Live and learn.
Yeah, I apologize for my mistakes if I've made any. But that's an interesting thing because you talk to a lot of different photographers and like even for me, a lot of my favorite photographers are skateboarders that have gotten into photography, like Jason, Ray Barbie, um, Raymond Molinar, amazing Polaroid photographer. Like his book on he did a 669 or no, not six, a time zero book that was just phenomenal. Like, yeah, so it's interesting.
I feel like you're trying to capture adolescence when you're a skateboarder. Like I mean, a bit of it is trying to capture a trick, obviously, and whether show it to friends or things like that. But in photography in general, is you want to capture a moment or scene or
Yeah, that's the key.
simplistic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I've heard a common thread with like different skateboarders turned photographers where that's that intrinsic skill that you end up learning of like when you're driving around in like the corner of your eye, you see a skate spot and you're just like, "Rrr," and you like pull over. That translates really well into like finding photographs as well.
Yeah.
And
There's I work in the film industry, and so there's these long drives where I'm like driving to the middle of nowhere. I'll pass like a farm and I'm like, that'd be a cool photo. If I come here at X time, I can get a really beautiful photo.
do you ever come across moments where you see a photo and you're like, this would be a great photo, but you don't want to take it because maybe it'd be like exploitative or like maybe there'd be something like it would be a great photo,
Yeah.
but you don't feel good about it.
Not just it's two things. So it's like there's a saying, one of my favorite people who I like met in my life. He was a focus puller when I was younger. Focus puller, builds cameras and stuff. But he said the best things in life go undocumented. And I think about that because there's sometimes where I'm in a moment and I'm experiencing something where if I had a camera with me, I may not be experiencing it the same way. And I think about that. But yeah, there are also times where I'm like, it would not be a great moment to like, take a photo of like X, Y, or Z person. Cause like, especially with like street photography, there are people who really, like Bruce Gilden, where it's like in your face and that can be really exploitative. And I'm not that kind of photographer. I'm more like, a lot of times I take photos where people are the secondary subject.
I get jealous of those guys sometimes though, because like you see those photos and you're like, fuck, that is a cool photo. I think Gary Winogrand is probably my favorite for that kind of stuff. And I like his like technique of getting away with it because he'd just sort of be like this bumbling guy that's just like, oh, I don't even, how does this click? Just like fumble his way through. And people are like, what's up with this guy? Doesn't even know his camera works.
Yeah.
well, I think I also think that I fell in love with it because I was taking photos on road trips and growing up skateboarding, going down to San Francisco, and back when you printed out, get Lennon rugs or whatever to get you your stills, and you go through them, and you're like, this is horrible, this is horrible. It's like, wow, this one looks really good. I'm a photographer, and you mess around and you find out, and then you go back to that years later, and you're like, these are all actually really good. I just didn't appreciate it at that time, and obviously didn't know what I was doing with lighting and everything like that. But it's a good way to just have fun, and I find that with the group is that we set out on themes every meetup, and we wander around the neighborhood here. We do street photography, and people are getting amazing photos in something that I drive by every day and take for granted. And because you're not stopping and just seeing the beauty in all these different things, even whether it's an industrial park or an actual park or the Fraser River, and it's just a
Well, and sometimes it's just
No matter what.
shapes. Like
Yeah.
you can just get a frame where all the shapes are. Because I remember, I think it was the second photo meetup where we went around and we just like walked in the neighborhood down to like the park. But there was this one of the people who works at Bow Photo, Boris. He was just sitting, but it was in this, it's like this tube where there's like a hole, and I just like kind of lined it up, and it was like, oh yeah, this is beautiful photo.
Yeah.
You know?
I like the one that with the pink dumpster. It's like all beaten up that you were in front of, and it was just you don't like. Now I'm always like, I want to go back there and take another photo.
And sometimes it's like I'll just choose like a technical thing that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna shoot a full roll of this film with this lens, wide open, whatever.
Yeah.
And like you can get some cool photos. Like when I got my Stumilux for the first time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go shoot wrestling, and it was just like a Canadian wrestling match, like WWE style wrestling, and I was just like, I'm gonna see what it looks like to just shoot a whole roll of double X like this, and it is one of my favorite like just set of photos because I was like, the way that the lights are and the way that the bouquet looks just looks really evocative.
Well, and Double X is such a sexy film. Like it's for I hope a lot of people that are into film are familiar with it, but for like those that aren't, Eastman Double X is a black and white 35 millimeter film that and Cinestill also makes it in 120 now too, which is cool. But it was originally meant for cinema.
Yeah.
So it's like a really cool, like most of your favorite black and white films were probably made on Eastman Double X. And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I tried to ask a friend from Kodak. I was like, can you like find out like what the secret is? Because it almost seems like Double X is like a love child between like Tri-X and T-Max.
Yeah.
And
One, it pushes so nice and it holds contrast really well. Like I do a lot of, so with my M2, I do a lot of on-set stills, shooting like a television show, and then, just take a few photos, mostly for the crew, because the crew often, this on-set stills person is taking photos of like the cast, and like their job is like publicity, whereas like I'm like, I want to shoot something to remember this moment because we're never going to be here again.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's so many times where like they build all these sets, and then when the show's over,
They just destroy all of it.
yeah, it's all gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you get these amazing photos, especially like on Double X. They look so cinematic.
You should try while it's still available, because I heard that they may be going away, but Piranha P30.
Yeah,
You should, if you can get a couple rolls of it, try shooting it, and then you'll be sad forever when it's gone because they went out of business. But
when I went to
Sounds depressing.
Atlanta, I shot my first roll of I think it was either P30 or the P33, the higher speed ortho. I love ortho film. I think it looks
ortho
so
film
cool.
is super cool. I took some beautiful portraits in San Francisco on the ortho film, and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think I loaded it in my wide lux, and I there's this like abandoned football stadium in Atlanta that you can just go to, and I was like, I am just gonna shoot out this roll of P30 just in this like abandoned like, and it's like with the wide lux, it's just like all bendy and cool, and like, oh man,
That's really cool.
Yeah, the abandoned stadium is it's such a cool place to just like go take photos for an afternoon.
Is there a place? I mean, obviously, I'm asking this question because I have a couple ideas, but is there a tourist location or a town or a city that you would want to go to just to take photos?
Oh
man. One place I do like to go just to take photos is Denton, Texas.
Mm.
Yeah, it's and just like even West Texas in general, the light that you get there is phenomenal. A couple years ago, my friend Armand from the Denton Camera Exchange, we drove down together for Policon, which happened like the original Policon started in Denton, Texas, and one year, like was it 3 years ago now, I decided to drive down because I had a bunch of vacation time I needed to burn up, and then I got this new job where they give you a company car, and it was free gas. So I'm just like, yeah, I'll take that. And the car that I had at that time, which was pretty cool, was it was like a brand new Toyota Tacoma crew cab, and so it felt right at home in Texas. But that trip down,
Gun
like
rack?
no gun rack. But it's every time I go to Texas, everyone has guns, and I end up leaving wanting a gun so bad because like even some of the homeless people I saw had guns like in
Like
the back of their
packing?
pants. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
they're packing. Like I saw this one dude
Priorities.
that he was pushing a shopping cart. He had no shirt, he had no shoes, he was wearing like acid wash jeans, and then he had like a fucking Desert Eagle like tucked in his ass crack. I remember like I'm eating my Tex-Mex being like, okay, everyone in Texas has guns. This is something. But that drive we took, like we went through towards Marfa and all that. So we went through like Southwest Texas along the Rio Grande and all that, and like through Marathon and all these different places. And it was just Alpine was really cool. And so like that one, if you have the time to take a drive, that was really cool. And then I would also go back to Kansas and Missouri and Oklahoma and do the Route 66 drives and like go. It's all disjointed now. Like there's no straight Route 66, but the Midwest is like so fucking cool to take photographs of because the light is beautiful. Just like I guess where the angle of the sun is in that part of the world, you get this like beautiful golden light there. There's so much cool historic shit. When you're going through the small towns, you go into these like diners and stuff. And I was worried that I would like come across maybe some like, racist stuff or like, people not being super friendly, but not a single instance of like unfriendliness or like untowardness. Everyone was super friendly. Just these like really interesting old people that wanted to share their life stories just because you were like, hey, how you doing? And they're just like, you're friendly. I'm gonna chew your ear off for a minute there, son.
I would. It's funny how it always seems to be America that like that the street photography kind of comes to mind, or like the architecture and like mid-century modern homes and things like that. I wanted like even I blame Jason Lee and his photography of gas stations and stuff like that. That I'll drive by a gas station and be like, that looks cool. And
Well, there's something beautiful about like decay. Like I was in Missouri not that long ago, and I was like, their whole downtown has kind of, because of COVID, people have moved out,
Yeah.
and so like now there's a lot of like abandoned buildings, but they're still like beautiful because they're old, like 1920s, 1930s buildings, and you're like, oh, this is a cool photo.
Japan also is very interesting to me. Like there was a photographer that was taking pictures of their vending machines in like random spots, and it looked
That'd be cool.
cool, like how lit up they were in a very random location. Tiny cactus online. I really like her photography where she obviously is doing some manipulation with it, but it's just stepping back and seeing something that you don't normally see.
Japan would be really cool. Like it's a good friend of mine, Henry Robideau. He's not on Instagram because he's like almost 80 and doesn't do the social medias. But one of the projects he was working on is he went on an arts council trip to Japan in the 90s. He was one of the last people to take this like art ambassador trip to Japan. And he was showing me the photos that he took. He's working on a potential book of like all these photos he took just traveling around Japan for a month in I think it was like 1990 or 1991. And the thing that really tripped me out about it is just the way like styles and fashion have kind of come around, where like a lot of that 90s stuff, people are like wearing similar things now. So when I was looking at these like photos from like, geez, like 30 plus years ago now, they looked like they could have been taken today. Except the thing that was uncanny with it was there was no people holding, there was no cell phones, there was like none of this, there was none of that. Like it was just people talking, people reading. Like it was a little uncanny because I was like, I don't remember when things were like that. But this photo looks like it could have been taken like yesterday, just from like the style of what people are wearing in it. And that I think that's one thing that I find really magical about photography is that sort of timelessness that some photos can have with it. But I also have to blame Jason Lee for his photos really draw me into it because they remind me of road trips with my family when I was a kid. We did a lot of road trips when I was a kid, and a lot of his photos have that sort of like, this could be anywhere, this decay, this like open road, this like random scene there.
Can I ask you, did your family also listen to whale noises on the CD
No.
during those road trips? No?
No,
Because that changes every perspective when you're looking outside of a station wagon, you know?
we would listen to my mom saying, Gee, we should get gas. And my dad being like, it's okay, there's a gas station around the corner. And there never was. And we would always run out of gas. And
The thought of like not having the internet on your in your palm anymore is also just like, I forgot about that. You couldn't just Google what might this mean.
yeah, you had to be present in the moment. And
Getting lost.
Yeah. I mean, there was somebody doing a questionnaire where it's like, did you ever use a pull-out map? And I was like, yeah, all the time. Like, I'm not that old though. I was, it was a thing like 20 years ago. Like, I hate those questions because when people are like, I was born in 2000, you're like, I graduated then. I can't believe that you didn't have a map. Like, I remember using maps all the time, but yeah.
I never remember either of my parents using maps. But
Oh my goodness.
that was still before like, GPS and
My family
just
was very
knew.
exploratory, I guess. Trendsetters.
My dad was very exploratory, but it was I know the general direction of where we're headed, so we'll figure it out as we go along. Which sometimes he didn't, but most of the time we got to where we were hoping to go eventually.
Yeah, we stuck to the I-5, I think. Or
sometimes you'd
the
end up where
Pacific.
you didn't expect to be, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is actually just as good.
Yeah, 100%.
I always liked it when there was drama in our road trips where the car broke down, because it was stressful to my parents and it wasn't fun in that sense, but you end up in this small town that you would never have stopped in, and you saw something that you didn't normally see, and I think if I was old enough to have my own camera or something like that, it would have been amazing to capture those things, because that's the other thing about skateboarding that I think ties into photography is that you're always exploring different spaces, like you said, and how things look. But when you're driving different neighborhoods looking for something to skate is very similar to photography, where you're driving to get a different perspective on something. Or like when I'm selling a condo in a neighborhood I've sold many times, but you're in the 20th floor of that building and you're like, I didn't realize New West looked like this, or whatever might be the case. And I think, when you've got a different perspective, it really opens up things.
Yeah, it really does. And I think travel is important for that, to open your perspective up. Like, even something as simple as like, if you've never left British Columbia, drive to Alberta.
Yeah.
Like, if you've never left the Lower Mainland, take a ferry to the island or something. Like, even this small thing like that opens your experience and your mind up a little bit more. And like America, you made that mention that like a lot of people focus on that, and I think part of it's a convenience thing because it's right there.
Yeah.
But I think there's also like a romance to it as well. Like when you think about the open road, when you think about exploring, like America is sort of what comes to mind because of that whole like journey across the land thing. Like even though Canada's a very interesting country, I mean the middle of it's kind of fucking boring, but the bookends are really fun.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is I think I really like open fields for some reason because I think that I love clouds, I think. And then,
Oh yeah.
and if, you know, obviously there's some areas that you'll never see a cloud, but I just like when my wife and I got married, my wife's a photographer. She's an amazing photographer. She got into wedding photography, which I don't understand because I find that to be so boring, but she always had a good eye finding something in the crowd when it's like the reception that it just shows other people that are happening that you wouldn't when it's your day and you're all you want to see is photos of yourself and how, but like those moments are capturing your family and friends celebrating with you. And I think if you have a good eye for capturing those moments, and I think when I'm driving down a road and there's a field of crops, but yet there's a bright blue sky with like these clouds that you'll never see again in that same formation, is pretty awesome. I think I definitely have a fascination with clouds. Didn't mean to get off the topic with the clouds.
Well, it's just
No,
like,
the clouds are like I freaking love clouds too. Like and the clouds are very different in open plains than they are here. Like you get like they're almost kind of, you know, they're dreamy.
clouds
They're like
and
the clouds
sunsets.
that the clouds that you dream of when you're a kid that you just lay up and you're like, that I lost that. Like I think we all lose that when we get older, but when you could look at a cloud and be like, I see a dog or I see something, and then now I'm like looking, I'm like, I don't see nothing. I just see a white mess.
Just mist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you realize that it's a formation of water in the clouds. It's eventually going to come down. So.
Yeah. Well, it's just like clouds in relation to like what's on the ground too. Is like, because sometimes I'm just like, oh, there's a beautiful gas station sign with a beautiful sky above it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a perfect photo.
Yeah. The
Like when
reflection.
Superstore is perfectly lit by the sunset, and you're just
That
like,
also
wow.
has a spot too.
Yeah.
Chevron. That's a great logo.
Yeah, that's a Chevron's a great logo.
Yeah.
But Shell stations at night, come on,
Yeah.
on some Cinestill 800T.
I don't get the representation of Shell in gas though. Is there something? Is it fossils?
Yeah, fossils.
Fossils, yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Figured it out.
and
Didn't even Google it.
Shell sounds better than Royal Dutch, so
Yeah.
because that's the parent company.
It's like I love this. I'd shop at dead dinosaur bones. You know.
That okay? So there's a gas station in the States which I
Bones was already
absolutely
taken.
I fucking love this gas station strictly only because their logo is a dinosaur, and they're called Sinclair, and almost every Sinclair station will have some assorted size of a little green dinosaur, kind of like this guy, and that's my favorite gas station in the States just because of the dinosaur.
Yeah. Speaking of just unrelated, well, semi-related to, you know, Domo?
Yes,
Don't
I love the fact that so Canadian small chain gas station, their whole idea was like cheaper gas. You know,
yeah,
I think they were like the first to like not have attendance and it was just like self-serve. But I think there's only one left and it's in Richmond. But
Which is funny because I think Richmond legally you can't fill your own gas tank there.
Yeah.
Now.
there's a bunch of Domos in Alberta. I remember Domo only because of my father. Because when I was a kid, he had this 1980 something Hyundai Pony, and he went to a Domo station because it was cheaper.
yeah,
But the gas was bad, and it like fucked his car up, and he had to spend like all this money. So it was like supposed to be a cheap tank of gas, and it ended up costing him a bunch of money because he had to like get the fuel lines flushed and like all this stuff. And so it's like that always stuck in my mind where he's like Domo bad. And I was just like never go to Domo. So like carried that into my adulthood. Cohen said here on the chat that he said drive Highway 36 from near the border of Alberta to Fort Mac. What a desolate scene that is. He loves that drive.
that is a good drive. I've done that.
I've never done that one.
My sister lives in southern Alberta, so I every once in a while I'll do the drive, and it's like you find these cool like spots, and you're like, and just as someone who's grown up in BC, being like no mountains. Whoa.
No mountains is weird. Like growing up in BC, like the first time I went to Toronto, I flew there at night. And so I didn't see anything until the morning when I opened up the blinds to my hotel room and I was like on a 14th floor room pointing east. and I opened up my blind, and I'd never seen so far in my life, and it made my like heart hurt. I was just like, there's something really wrong with this place.
My first time to Toronto, people always give directions by saying go north or go south, and I'm like, why are you telling me this when I don't know? I don't have mountains to tell me where I am.
Yeah.
Because the mountains are always north here, so I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, south. I got you. Oceans to the west. Okay, I know where to go. But they were telling me where to go by direction, and I'm just going, well,
What direction?
how? It's everything's flat. I can't tell where anything
Bring
is.
out your compass.
Well, why would I do that? To prove them right? I don't do that.
Apparently, Nardwar wrote a song with Domo in it.
Oh.
Yeah, shout out to
I was.
Nardwar.
It's like all I can think of is Domo. Was that something that is that part of that Domo?
I think you're thinking of Mr. Roboto.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's what it
Domo
is.
Rogato, Mr.
Oh my
Roboto.
gosh, yes.
Yeah,
Domo.
Domo.
All right, I'm glad we went there. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean, that's what's fun about this is we can go on all sorts of different tangents and see where it leads us. But yeah, I think the road trip is a really interesting thing, and it does seem like a predominantly American idea. But it would be kind of cool to see like other like I think Europe would be really cool instead of doing a road trip, doing like a train trip
Yeah.
because
I did
like
a
the
train
rail
trip.
system's so good.
I did
yeah.
a train trip when I was in China, and that like the people watching and like a lot more of that was fun because road trips like and you also have to have the right partner for road trips.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
by
if you don't have someone who's willing to stop every
That's
30
the
kilometers
That's
and
the test.
explore, then you're literally just taking the longest trip ever to get somewhere. So I think it was Modest Mouse that was always like, there had a line where it was like, the getting there was half the fun.
Yeah.
But when you're with a horrible group of people in a car, it's not as fun. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks the life out of it.
Yeah. To the train thing, my very first like big trip, I went to Paris, and then I took the
nice.
train from Paris all the way down to Budapest, and I stopped in like Munich and Berlin, and this is one of the best photo trips I've ever had.
That's
Just
cool.
like, and it was great because it was most of it was like mainland, and then I flew to Madrid, and then I flew to London as like it was the 2017, the year there was like a huge
the volcano eruption.
volcano, yes.
Yeah.
And so it was like if you wanted to fly out, like I was like, oh, I could fly back from Germany. And then I look at the prices, I'm like, that's as much as a car.
Yeah.
I'll go to London and fly out from London. Yeah, oh my God, like such a beautiful countryside. Like trains, so fun to do train trips.
I was gonna say, like you talking about that volcano eruption. Like, would you ever do? You know, they always say that after a natural disaster or something bad happens, that the prices to that area go down, but yet they're not stopping tourism.
Yeah.
They still want tourism, and that they encourage you to go so you can actually get really good deals going to those locations. But would you go there specifically to do photography because you might have, the attention of people who live there where you can engage, and then because they don't have as many tourists as normal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like if you went there with the intent to photograph and like
Document.
document in
Yeah,
a way
not
that's
that
like,
way. I think more
yeah,
trying to go and experience the lifestyle without having tons of people in that area.
yeah,
Yeah, I would go to some place. It's interesting too, like when Kamloops had those really crazy fires out in Barrier in like 2005-ish, I think, somewhere around there. We drove, like when it was safe, we drove out to Barrier and like, took some photos of what was left. And like, I mean, LA would be an interesting place to go after this and
Yeah,
see some of
I didn't
that.
think
And
about
just
that.
like, I've seen some of the pictures from friends posting like what's left of their houses. And man, like, I don't really feel bad for the like really rich, famous people, but I feel bad for the homies that like were just making it, and like that was like their dream, and they got it, and they were just
Yeah.
getting it by, and now it's like I
Well,
hear the
and
insurance
also
companies
people
are
taking
like,
advantage of those situations, and
yeah,
there's limited places for them to go and stay until it gets rebuilt.
Well, and it's awful because the
100%.
insurance is just like the insurance for a lot of places shifted right before it happened, and it's like a lot of people weren't covered. And it's
Yeah.
well, I hear there's like a lot of like, oh, it's an act of God. We're not gonna cover
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
I mean, the photography that I would have, I mean, there was a Detroit episode of Anthony Bourdain's show where they were just showcasing Detroit after everything had happened with the recession, and I mean the photography of the homes being overgrown by nature was phenomenal. And
Yeah.
but then they also touched on how like there was the factories that had all fallen apart and there was graffiti everywhere, and that you now just getting tourists coming and taking photos and shooting music videos and stuff like that. And that wasn't as, I just thought like this overgrowing of everything, showcasing that men can kind of get wiped out pretty quickly by nature. I think that is something to photograph, and I think the fires is a little bit about that, where we're building things because of money, not building things because of common sense or recognizing what's happening with nature and that we need to adjust things. So I think it documents it and then not celebrates it or whatever, but I mean it's something to learn from.
It's an important thing to have documented.
Yeah.
Like I think, well, I worry sometimes that with the proliferation of how easy it is to take a photo now, that like the value of a photograph isn't as substantial as it used to be at one point. Like you look back, turn of the century, like the US government used to pay people to just drive around and document the state of the country at that time so that they could preserve like, what was going on. And, maybe those people, some of those people might have been like the first street photographers in like North America when you think about it from that perspective.
Are they now replaced by Google cars?
Well, I
I
think
feel like
it's
that's
just,
kind of doing it, but I mean it's just not as
it's part of
artistic
it, but
and
it's just because
being
everyone
soulless.
can like grab a phone and take a photo with it, or like, it's just, I think there's like an oversaturation of stuff out there where it's just not as valuable as it used to be. And people like, in the, like when photography was like earlier on, like random people would get excited at a stranger having a camera and potentially taking a photo of them because like they have, maybe that was the first time they've seen a camera, and it's just like, oh my God, yeah, I want my photo. I will never see that photo. But the fact that like there's a photo of me somewhere, like that was a big thing. And now people are like, you got a camera? Fuck you, don't take my picture.
Well,
I'm
it can
drawing
go
a blank.
two different ways, because it's like so many times I bring out my camera and people are still like, oh, you're shooting, especially the Leica. They're like, oh, you're shooting film, or you're shooting this, and like their guard kind of drops. Or I'll bring out my Russian folder that looks like a bellows camera, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. And so many times it gives you an in where you may not, and it's like compared to like your phone, or like being like I can take a photo with my phone, and someone's like,
Well, it's like you were telling before we got online. You were talking about the first time we met, and I gave you an instant photo.
oh yeah,
And like that's a shtick that I usually do, where like I'll carry an instant camera with me, and if someone looks interesting, I'll ask them if I could take a picture, and I'll do it with instant film so they can have a copy of that.
Well, that's like the best part of Polaroid, is like being able to share. There's so many photos that I have taken that I've just given to someone.
Yeah.
Or I've made prints and I just like give the best version of that print to a friend.
I think it's a great gift. I mean, there's more happiness in giving than receiving, and I think the photography is a good way to compliment people and say like, this is worthy of something, and and then also capturing moments that you like. I was just thinking about this. My aunt just passed away, and you know, you go to a memorial and the photos that you see, but there was a lot more photos taken back in the day that,
Yeah.
like, even with all the photos that we take, you know, it's usually like a concert you went to, or, you know, like you said, like not living in the moment and taking photos of something that you're at, just enjoy that moment. But then, you know, your own family and friends, you're not really getting those moments together, and photos that you will be like thinking of when, you know, unfortunately someone passes, you know. But there's ways to capture that. And you know, we think about like our school photos, like we used to do that every year.
Yeah.
Right.
Hated all of them, but at least you can look back and be like, you know, those braces helped, you know.
Yeah, well, that's like the thing that I noticed. Like, so like from like when I was a small child to like maybe 10 or 12, my parents took photos. And then I have the digital photos that I took in high school, and none of them look any good because they were all like sub 1 megapixel phone photos that you're like, oh, I can't even tell that that's me. That's, you know.
Yeah, I remember always being enamored when the Jostens guy would show up, because he had like that crazy like charger pack thing for like all the flashes, and like it was a big setup to, like, you know, just take some snotty nosed kids pictures.
I always laugh because I have 3 siblings, and so I'm the youngest of them, and there's so many photos of all of them. But then the only photos of me were me in like the backyard after my dad had renovated something, and he had to get pictures for some reason, and he'd be like, I got 2 more photos here. Yeah, it's just stand there. And it would be like he was just killing a roll on me. And so all my photos are in like I'm dirty and just like, what? And
I gotta say the killing the role like photos, sometimes I'm like, I'll
They're the
just be like,
best.
you know, you're kind of free to do with whatever you want. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna take this photo, and I was like, oh, this actually turned out really well.
I like killing of the roll, and then the first of the, especially on like
Yeah.
the old cameras, when you get those couple of janky frames that are like a little like bled and like, you
Yeah,
know.
there's this one photo I remember on like I have a Canon Demi, and it does, you know, the winder at the beginning, you know, it doesn't quite. So there's one where it's like, it wasn't a diptych, it was a quad trick, like where they had all just slightly overlapped, and I was
Oh,
like,
that's cool.
this is beautiful. And I was like, oh, this is a great.
you're like, here, I meant to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's
I'll
like,
never be able to do it again.
I'm an
but
artist.
Yeah.
This is my work.
what's the thing about analog is it allows for, you know, little things to happen where it's not perfect, or it's something that you didn't expect to happen.
But I do think that, like, and I'm only saying this because of my struggle with it, is impatience. But then also that you do need to take a number of photos, spend a lot of money in this day and age to try to get that photo. I like this space that we're in right now is next door to the brewery, future expansion, plug. And
Art departments, yeah.
art department. And it used to there used to be an artist in here named James Nizam. Some of you probably know, and he's on Instagram. He very focused on photography, and I love all his stuff. And he put paint cans. He made a bunch of pinhole cameras out of like unused, like brand new paint cans, like pristine. And I think he did like 12 or 15 of them and put them up on the roof and angled them. But, you know, he let it sit up there for 6 months mapping the sun as it, you know, went through of that time. And, you know, put 12 or 15 of them up there, and he maybe got 1 or 2 really good shots.
That's cool.
And I was just like, man, that's a lot of work for two shots. But that's his whole art, is going places and capturing these things that you're not going to get the first go. You might have to be camping out for multiple nights and things like that to get it. And I think that for me, I would love to be able to dedicate that time, but I think that anything that you're really passionate about, you have to buy out that time and really, you know, really dive into it to make it make sense, especially when it comes to not using your phone or or digital, because sometimes you just can't get those shots that you want with what's available. But
You have to set aside the tinker time.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, time in the darkroom, time,
Well,
making.
and years of mistakes. That's what I've noticed.
Well, and you know, like R.I.P. to the king we recently lost, David Lynch. But you know, you gotta have time to dream.
Yeah.
You know, that was like some of my favorite rants of his is where he'd like go off about like not having enough time to dream, like his tirades about it, and like it's important to set time aside for that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we only have so many years on in life, and you know, you think of people who have dedicated their whole life to photography and they still don't know everything about it. There's no way you can. And I think some people struggle with that, right? Like you might have one camera that you use your whole life and you still are like, I could learn so much more.
Yeah. Well, it's like there's infinite technical knowledge and infinite artistic knowledge. You know, it's like so many photographers you meet are like, I shoot on a camera. I just every day I just shoot. I don't know anything about like you know, they some people don't like, you know, they aren't technically inclined, and but they make beautiful photos and you're like, geez, I wish I was as good as them. But it's like, you know, they just shoot every day.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the thing. Like, do you get jealous?
Was
Do
that?
you get jealous with other people's photography? Or like, man, you were there at that right time, or you know, you got
I
that
don't
shot?
get jealous, but sometimes there'll be like moments where a friend and I have taken a picture of a similar thing,
Yeah.
and then I'll see theirs and be like,
That makes sense.
like yours looks so like mine looks like shit, but it's the same thing. But it's just like, you know, maybe they tilted a little bit different this way, or just like, you know, got a different, because they see things differently. And I know a lot of friends have said similar things to me about like stuff I do, where they're like, you take these really boring, mundane things and you make them interesting because you see the world in a fucked up way. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but I'll take it.
Well, that's what I thought about my wife doing photography. Like you missed that first kiss, so you know, it's so stressful.
Yeah.
It's like you're at the X Games when Tony Hawk does 900, and you look down to look at your film for a second, and you're like, I missed it. And yet you got these other guys who all got it perfect, and you know, it'd just be very frustrating. But yeah.
There's a lot of don't think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took so when I got engaged, I took my own engagement photo. So
Okay.
I tricked my fiance into, you know, like, hey, you know, like, let's go on a vacation, blah blah blah. We end up going to Oslo. She's like, oh, beautiful. And I'm like, you know, I set up the tripod, and I'm like, you stand there, I'll stand here, you know, we'll get a beautiful photo of Oslo behind, you know, like, and I hit the self timer and I pull it out, and I just didn't think about it. I just like got this photo of like the engagement where she's like, and it's a perfect photo, and I just didn't.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, overthinking is definitely like something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
You know, that's why it's important to dream.
Yeah.
And just do.
I thought you were about to say drink.
I mean, drinking's good too, and that
like-
could be a perfect segue for.
No, don't.
you know.
I was joking. I don't condone drinking. Wait.
Well, responsible drink.
Yeah.
You
In
gotta
moderation.
drink responsibly, and enjoy, like, savor the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I know he's sad over there, our lighting director, because he's no longer allowed to drink beer, and he loves beer.
Sorry.
But beer hurts his gut. He works now. So sorry, man.
Yeah, I think that, as you said, like dreaming, but like also just taking time and thinking about what you want to do, and then going and executing it too. Because I think too, like there's, you know, a lot of good teachers that I had in my day, and they always encouraged you to do something, and sometimes it didn't make sense for you because you have a different learning pattern.
Yeah.
I'm definitely more visual, and so whenever they just told you something, I'm like, I gotta see it.
I'm the same way. Yeah.
So like I have like this photographic memory where, you know, you see something, I can remember how to get back there instantly because of whatever I experienced. But if you told me it, I wouldn't remember.
Yeah, I'm that way with like driving. Once I've been to a place once, I have like a mental map of like
Yeah.
how was I got there, and
So on that point, have you ever gone somewhere where it's left-sided driving? And
No.
or sorry,
I haven't driven on the
Right.
opposite side of the road yet.
it messed me up.
I can only
I was
imagine.
because I'm so capable of getting around. Like I was able to get around in Taiwan, even though all the streets had Chinese characters, and I just remembered my direction. I was able when I lived there for a while, and then I went to Malaysia, and Australia. I got lost all the time. I just relied on that ability, and then
And then when it's gone, you're just like, ah.
yeah, and then it messes me up because I mean, if you think about how applicable that is to cameras and the eye, everything's.
So, question for both of you: unlimited budget, unlimited money, do whatever you want. Where would you travel to, and what would you do?
You know, even well, I can go first.
Yeah, go first.
It'd be Europe. I like the idea that you can get through multiple different countries and culture with a short train ride, and you know, or I always had this dream that I would purchase an American car, like a Lincoln Continental, and drive it across America, and then like you know photograph, and then take it to like New York and have it shipped to Europe, fly over. You know, obviously it's going to take a bunch of time, but you could plan it out, and then drive Europe with that American car, getting photos of something that you know. I know they have American cars over there, but I think it's just the whole experience of the process, and then you know, being in Holland with this Lincoln Continental with like windmills in the background, like just that whole process, and then selling to somebody who would really greatly appreciate that American car in that area, and then coming back, and then that whole experience. That was something I would love to do.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that because like my unlimited travel dream, similar, but I'm a Volvo guy. I've had like over a dozen some Volvos in my time. Yeah, they're great cars, but Volvo has an option, very safe. Volvo has an option where you can take European delivery on a new Volvo, and it's a minimum 2 weeks, maximum 6 months. You can go on this trip to Europe to pick up your car, and you pick it up at the factory in Gothenburg, like just as they're finishing it up. So like they fly you there, you get a factory tour, and then they bring you to be like, here's your new car, we just birthed it. And then you get to just have it in Europe for like 2 weeks to 6 months.
And is there a process where you can get it shipped over to you?
It's all it's all done. So
That is rad.
you can
That's
bring
awesome.
it back to Gothenburg and they can ship it there, or they have a bunch of different port destinations where you can drop it off. And so you have this epic road trip with your car in a different countries, and then you have it back here, and you're just like, this. I was in Switzerland with this car. Like,
Well,
I was
imagine
here.
the photos you have for that car when you go to sell it on Facebook Marketplace. It's just like, here it was in front of here. You know? Like,
Yeah.
You're
Look at that windmill.
Yeah, exactly. What a fantastic windmill. And then the thing that's kind of cool with it is when you do finally ship it, you don't pay full tax on the car because you're not buying a brand new car, you're buying a used car.
Huh.
When it's imported, because you're no longer importing a brand new vehicle, you've imported a used vehicle.
Would it be cheaper if you went to one side of the continent over the other to get it to Vancouver? Or would you get it to like Ottawa or
Well, they'll
The
ship
East
it to your
Coast, man.
house. So it's like, the way the delivery works is
you know this?
Yeah, I've heard of
Okay.
it. There's,
Yeah.
I think Volvo does it, and I think
Porsche does it too.
Yeah, I also think maybe Volkswagen, but
So like you said, endless amounts of money. Like how much more expensive is it to just go to the dealership and buy it or do that? Like is it like
It's not
100?
that much more expensive. It's like you're paying for a vacation basically.
yeah.
Okay.
Because like the difference
that.
you're paying for is like your airfare travel and then your like time for that. So it doesn't add much more to the vehicle cost, but it's like I say unlimited money because I would want to take the 6 months and just like, fuck off to like Europe and spend 6 months just like driving. And being completely disconnected. Like that's something that in the last year, when I'm taking time off or when like it's mandatory time off kind of things, I'm being more mindful about actually disconnecting from like work stuff and disconnecting from these things and just being more present in my life. And it's made a huge difference.
Wow.
Where would you go?
I probably similar. I'd probably go around Europe. I've been to like Scandinavia and Norway, but I think I would go more like Eastern Europe, like go back to Budapest, go like Austria, Hungary. But I also would love to go to Japan.
Yeah, just on Instagram, but it's still on YouTube and we're still recording it. So Instagram has this thing where after an hour they're like, so
Oh,
Like you're too interesting.
yeah, you can't talk this much. But they only do it when you're using a streaming app. If I was like doing this on the iPad and
Oh.
just like I've done like 2.5 hour streams, but yeah, we're coming up on an hour of chatting. It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
It's easy. So I keep going.
But
You
yeah,
were saying
yeah, no,
Budapest.
I'd love to like go to Japan, take photos in Japan.
That'd be
because
cool.
there's so much interesting stuff and like, yeah, for street photography, it seems like such a fun place to shoot.
You know, it'd be cool, unlimited money being the thing, if you could take Japanese delivery of a new crown
Oh yeah,
and like drive that crown around like, you know, like an emperor or something and then ship that back. That would be freaking those Toyota crowns are something special.
I feel like we're all on the same page here. It's not very interesting for the listeners. It's like, yeah, I'll do the same.
Yeah, why not?
But
So yeah, we're kind of coming up to the end here of things, and let's talk a little bit more about the photography club. Like, what are some of your guys' plans for this year with the photography club, and like, what are you hoping to grow it out to?
well,
you're taking the lead.
we're
which I
coming up
appreciate.
to basically the first year is kind of done kind of April, March. And I want to do kind of a gallery style show of like photos that have been taken by members of the photography club.
Okay.
And not to put you on the spot, but using the art department as kind of a place to put those photos.
No, that's what I want to do too. I think, yeah, I love the ideas. I want to get them involved. Maybe we can do a label of some sort, but it's like, I don't want to make that cheesy, but
Yeah.
like something to represent. I always wanted to do the same idea that James Nizam did with the pinhole cameras, but still, like him and I were talking about doing something similar with some beer cans on the roof and
Oh, that'd be cool.
but that hasn't happened yet, but maybe there's a way we can work that into the photography club.
Yeah.
But just doing more more engagement, I think that we need to get the word out a bit more and maybe see how big we can get this group to be,
Yeah.
which we appreciate you doing this podcast with us.
Yeah,
too,
no, this is fun, and I appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity to get back in the podcast saddle here. And I know Saturdays are kind of a tough day for me sometimes, so I've been out to a couple of them, but I definitely want to try and plan to be at more this year.
Maybe we got to do a 1-year anniversary party.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, and any parting words for the folks?
What do people normally say?
Oh, whatever you want. Be like, stay classy.
Yeah.
No, that was the Will Ferrell one.
We could say, photo club is the first Saturday of every month.
Oh, yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
5 p.m.
Yeah, we're at another beer co in New Westminster, and
What's the
all are
address
welcome.
Yeah.
30 Capilano Way. It's very
Yeah.
confusing. It's not North Van, but
Yeah.
30 Capilano Way, Unit 11.
Yeah.
Bring your friends, bring your dogs, bring your.
Camera.
One person brought
camera.
a cat one time, so you can do
Oh,
that.
Interesting. What about
yeah.
a chupacabra?
I don't know what it was. Oh, yeah, do that.
Sure. Okay.
Might as well.
Yeah. Don't bring mice or rats.
Yeah, no, those aren't. That's
I
not
got
cool.
grain here. And we got some snacks, we got foods, we got endless amounts of beer. So, yeah. And non-alcoholic stuff. My wife has Heartberry soda. If you haven't heard of it, it's the indigenous soda brand that
And this
is wicked and
sparkling
more-
hop water
and then
has
this,
been very delicious.
yeah, no calories,
Yeah.
no.
We should also
No,
plug
nothing.
Bow Photo.
Yeah. Oh, right. Both photo. Yeah.
You know, our sponsor.
They often bring different items that we can use for those photo shoots. It's always been fun. They've been amazing.
Yeah. They helped us do a pinhole workshop. They gave me a film to give away at one of our meetups.
Yeah,
they've
they
been
brought
a great sponsor.
They brought a pop-up dark room.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, for the pinhole, it was really great.
I
Yeah,
missed
both
that
photos
one.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love those guys.
Yeah. Shout out to Nicole, Marley,
Nicole's the best.
Megan, Morris.
Yeah,
Yeah, all of them. Jason. Can't forget Jason. Jason's.
Jason's. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Jason made me waste a lot of money because I bought a Nikon Z8 because of him. That's a long story, but you know that's Jason's fault. But anyways, thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending this time with me, you guys.
This
I
was fun.
really appreciate it.
Love to do it again.
And we'll let Mr. Mocha walk us out here. And I'm looking forward to seeing like what you guys do with the club and how it grows.
I too. I want to, just keep building on it.
Bigger, better, improved.
You got any ideas?
Send it to the
Any
Instagram.
idea is a good idea.
It's at another photography club on Instagram. Hit them up, and definitely come check out Another Beer Co. I'm going to be bringing the chat back monthly. I don't know who my next guest is, but it'll be sometime next month. So thanks for hanging out
fun.
with us, and we'll catch you guys later. All right. Bye. Cool.
Sorry, I thought your screen dropped on, man.
No, that's I forgot that it kills after an hour, but YouTube still goes.
Yeah.
It never stops.
It's jokes.